Noam Chomsky has written extensively about the US intervention in Yemen, arguing that it is a humanitarian disaster and a violation of international law. He has also condemned the US for providing military support to Saudi Arabia, which is leading the intervention. In a 2018 article for The Nation, Chomsky wrote that the US intervention in Yemen is a major war crime that is causing immense suffering and destruction. He argued that the US is providing critical support to Saudi Arabia, which is using US-made weapons to bomb Yemeni civilians. He also pointed out that the US is blocking UN efforts to provide humanitarian aid to Yemen. Chomsky has also criticized the US for its support of the Saudi-led blockade of Yemen, which has prevented food and medicine from reaching millions of people. He has called the blockade a crime against humanity and a major factor in the humanitarian catastrophe. In a 2021 interview with Democracy Now!, Chomsky said that the US intervention in Yemen is a war crime that is ongoing. He argued that the US is providing the means for the Saudis to carry out their war crimes and that the US is complicit in the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Here is a more detailed analysis of Chomsky's views on the US intervention in Yemen. The US is providing military support to Saudi Arabia, which is leading the intervention. This includes providing intelligence, refueling, and logistical support. The US has also sold billions of dollars worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia. The US is blocking UN efforts to provide humanitarian aid to Yemen. This includes vetoing UN Security Council resolutions that would have lifted the Saudi-led blockade. The Saudi-led intervention has caused a humanitarian catastrophe in Yemen. Millions of people are facing famine, cholera, and other diseases. The UN has called it the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The US is complicit in the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. By providing military support to Saudi Arabia and blocking UN efforts to provide humanitarian aid, the US is helping to prolong the war and make the humanitarian crisis worse. Chomsky argues that the US intervention in Yemen is a violation of international law. He points out that the UN Charter prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The US intervention in Yemen is also a violation of the Geneva Conventions, which prohibit the targeting of civilians and the use of starvation as a weapon of war. Chomsky concludes that the US intervention in Yemen is a war crime. He calls on the US to withdraw its support for the intervention and work to end the war. In addition to his written work, Chomsky has also spoken out about the US intervention in Yemen on numerous occasions. In a 2018 speech at the University of Chicago, he said that the intervention is a crime against humanity and that the US is complicit in the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. He also called on the US to stop supporting the Saudi war on Yemen. Chomsky's analysis of the U.S. intervention in Yemen is consistent with his long-standing criticism of US foreign policy. He has argued that the US is a leading perpetrator of violence and oppression in the world and that the US government is often more interested in protecting its own interests than in promoting human rights. In the case of Yemen, Chomsky argues that the US is supporting a Saudi-led intervention that is causing immense suffering and destruction. He believes that the US should withdraw its support for the intervention and work to end the war.